This is the Nomad Futurist Podcast, a podcast about the evolution of technology, society, and transformation. Connect with us, share your thoughts with us at nomadfuturist.com. Let's get this started. Here are Phil and Nabeel.
Hello. Welcome to Nomad Futurist, live from Hawaii at PTC. This is your co-host, Nabeel Mahmood.
This is your co-host, Philip Koblenz, live in Honolulu, Hawaii.
And we are joined with Ilissa Miller today. Ilissa, thank you very much for taking the time to join us and hanging out with us in Hawaii. For starters, we are very thankful that you're a part of the Nomad Futurist Foundation and an ambassador and a partner in promoting.
Long before she was a partner of the Nomad Futurist podcast, I would wake up every morning and thank God for Ilissa Miller. Just thank you for being you, Ilissa.
Well, thank you. Your listeners cannot see the big smile on my face because I get to spend the morning in Honolulu talking to you beautiful people. So thank you for having me today.
Let's get to know you a little bit more for our audience. Could you tell us a little bit, what do you do?
In case any of our audience out there have been living under a rock for the last couple of decades, tell us who you are, Ilissa.
So, well, thank you. And thank you for asking who I am. It's a rather deep story. Shall we talk about it from the professional perspective?
I think
let's start professional.
Yeah, let's lay the groundwork of who you are, and then we'll go back to the embryonic stage.
Great. So you probably just want to get to the jugular, which is I run a public relations company for the global digital infrastructure space called iMiller Public Relations, or IMPR. And I have a team of fantastic people that I work with, train, develop, and inspire, I hope, to be part of this industry, the digital infrastructure industry, through the lens of marketing and PR efforts, through messaging, through understanding the ecosystem, positioning, amplification of those messages, and everything in between. And we get to work with some of the industry's greatest and best, get to channels like the Nomad Futurist podcasts and the foundation to help our clients achieve their goals, whether it's from a social responsibility or from an educational industry responsibility. And I love what I do, and I'm honored to be able to do that for this industry.
You do a heck of a job, so thank you. There's a lot of marketing hype. We'll get into that as the messaging and what's real, what's hype. But before we get started, what really struck me is that you've got a degree in English. And how did you get into the space? I mean, what would that transition to get into the tech sector?
When you were a little girl, did you say, when I grow up, I want to be
an opera singer?
I want to. Was that what it was? You want to be an opera singer?
That's what it was.
Can we get one note? Can you? What do you have?
Ave Maria.
My goodness. I think there's still a possibility for that to become a second career option.
If PR doesn't work out for me, I might go back into that.
I don't know. I wish we had video, because just the vibrato on that on your bottom lip, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
I had goosebumps.
Right. I saw a tear. I saw a tear form.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
So clearly you wanted to be an opera singer. You did not have eyes on being the queen of PR, not to steal an Amy Marxism, the queen of PR for the global digital infrastructure space.
No, I did not. Though I did play office really well with my siblings in the basement. My grandmother was a bookkeeper and would take the office supplies home and allow us to play in the basement, which was great. So I always wanted to pretend I was working in an office. Is that kind of what I'm doing now?
I mean, these days, I have no idea. You're pretty nomadic, right? So I'm not sure. Your office is wherever you are.
Office, yeah.
Right. So how did I get into this? All right. So here's the truth. I really loved singing and being a performer. However, I realized as I was in school and going through this process that as a singer or performer, you really are someone else's instrument. You're somebody else to do. You have to learn the music and you get to be expressionful when you are in that, but you're told where to stand. You're told where to go, right? It's other people's decisions about you and your life. And if you know a little bit about me, I like to be in control of my own life. And so that didn't work out for me. So I had quickly an existential crisis trying to figure out who I was going to be. So what's the best thing to do is switch your majors, stay at the same school, and
was your major in music?
English writing and lit. It was. I was a voice performer as a major, and I changed to English writing and lit.
And why did you pick up English writing and literature?
I had no idea what I wanted to do. After I figured out I didn't want to be the opera singer I thought I wanted to be my entire life. I mean, it was like throwing a dart at the wall.
I mean, it makes sense, right? The singing is how you expressed yourself. What better way to express yourself?
I was always a good writer. I was a good creative writer. I was a good performer, a theater person, right, in school. And so it was a place for me to go. And the funny thing about it is when I did change my major, I did well, except for medieval English literature. That was my nemesis. And I had a hard time graduating on time because I did not pass that with enough of a grade to have that qualify for my major. So that was the one class that held me back from graduating in the May timeframe. I literally had to take summer course to graduate in August.
All right, we're gonna visit medieval times in New Jersey one of these days, and we're gonna try to make sure that some of those remedial medieval writing classes paid off.
Yeah.
Is it vows and stuff? I don't even know what.
Thou shalt.
Yes.
Thou shalt not pass.
So now you graduated from college with a degree in English and English literature. How did you get into the tech space? What was that transition or journey like?
Right. So again, my journey going into the workforce was I did not want to work in a corporate environment. I was too creative, right? So I had a hard time finding a job, but a graphic design recruiting company recruited me.
I don't want to date you, but what is the data center like a big thing at that point?
Absolutely not. We didn't even know what the internet was, barely. I mean, I was on BitNet in the computer room, right, writing out instant relay chat, right? I was one of the computer geeks in the computer room.
So there was a little hint.
There was a connection.
I had an interest in all that. And as a matter of fact, it was, the early 90s at this point. And so at the graphic design recruiting firm, I did have a computer, but we weren't using that yet to log in, the artwork and all of that. And they were just starting out with Quark Express, right? And, doing digital graphic design.
Before there was a Photoshop, to our listeners, there was a program, it might still be out, called Quark Express.
Right. And anyway, I learned about design, and it was at this point where businesses were trying to put in databases. So I got to literally be part of the development of the first Access database that this company used, which I thought was interesting. And so after 3.5 years, having a heart-to-heart conversation with the owner of the firm, who told me that because I was not a trained designer, that I have pretty much to hit my limit where I would go in her firm, because she was looking for people from the graphic design industry. I said, fine, I'll go to the other side. And I found this guy who hired me to be a recruiter and help him build an Access database for his IT recruiting company.
So you were basically OG.
Before there was ever a Jerry DiMartino.
Yeah.
There was Ilissa Miller.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I learned recruiting as a skill first, right? How to identify and qualify people for jobs.
Is this in New York?
All in New York. And I built this Access database for this guy, Dan. And then I told him, I don't know who I am anymore. I quit. And I quit. I got up and quit after working for him for 6 months. And I took the summer off, and I did cold calling for the New York City Ballet Guild. I figured my dad's not going to be so mad at me if I do something that's okay with my time. So I got a telephone call job, right? And every night I had to dial for dollars, right? And
Glenn Ross.
They trained me how to do telephone sales, which, by the way, is a phenomenal skill. If you ever
oh my God, it's a hard one to master. It's a hard one to master.
Soon after, right, that entire summer, I got to win all of these, tickets to go see ballet, which I really didn't care about, but it was fun to be able to have that as a skill, right? A telephone sales skill.
Amazing.
That.
I mean, looking back on it now, it makes total sense. I knew you could do it.
So that's not how I really got into telephony. It's when Dan called me after that summer and said, hey, I have something for you. I know you're looking for a career, and I have an opening.
Dan was the recruiter.
The recruiter.
Yeah.
So I entertained it, and he had shared an office with a consultant who just took a package from IDB WorldCom. He was the head of international business development, and he was an engineer by trade. And the 1996 Telecommunications Act had just passed, And he was providing consulting services to companies who were looking, do business development, start new types of businesses, raise money, capital, all of that type of stuff. And he wanted his daughter to get into the industry. She didn't. So the next one came in, was me. And I said, okay, if you are saying what you're saying, that this is the industry that is the future, I want in and I want to be able to learn something. So I'm going to rely on you to help train me. I will do your executive assistant work. I will write your reports. I will do your billing. I will learn the business. You tell me what I need to know. And he invited me to every single executive meeting. I took every single note I needed to. I asked him about every single nuance of discussion afterwards. I read every book, all the telegeography books we bought for our clients went through me because I had to read them first.
So you found a mentor very early on in your career.
That was the very first and only thing I knew how to get in this industry was through a mentor.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the challenges we've got in space.
Right. There aren't that many, I think, particularly on an executive level. I think, look, so much of what made us, as the kind of pioneers of the space, if you will, is right place at the right time, right? It was 96 and all that. I think one of the problems that we try to highlight is the fact that there aren't enough people that are taking, young folks, people that might not necessarily have their own pathway to, let's quote Hamilton, the room where it happens, and going in there. And, to a certain extent, you learn by doing, you learn by osmosis, you learn through experience. Maria Montessori says that, right? So I think just being in those rooms is just so valuable if you have, the right kind of curious mind to supplement. And
curious mind is it, right? And so that's the number one thing that I tell anybody, just be curious. The more curious you are, the more you realize how curious you can be, right? It becomes that cycle, or it's the never ending. You should never be stumped with questions to ask if you have a curious
mind. Well, part of it is also, trying to find your path in where what you do for work is something that truly interests you. It's easy to be curious about something that you enjoy. You can't force it though. It has to be, something that you like. And I think part of the problem with our industry is that, from the outside looking in, it's so tech, when in reality, there are so many paths in our industry that aren't necessarily, designed for people that have a technical mind. There's plenty that you can do, with a creative mind as well.
Absolutely. And that is a huge message. Listen, it's easy to be intimidated by the jargon, by the tech speak.
Says the woman that invented all the jargon.
Well, I think she's right. Cleaning the jargon.
It's easy, but I think it's because people underestimate themselves. Mm-hmm. Once you figure out how to think about it, it unlocks the ability to understand the concepts. And that's one of the things that I actually do with my team, and I love to do with my team. Announced today that my commitment, I'm doubling down on that professional development commitment to my team, giving them, access to tools, resources, and information, opening doors for them, right? That they can go through and take the opportunity to learn, just like I did. I didn't do it because somebody stuffed the information in my head. I did it because I wanted that in my head. I wanted to understand it. And I wanted to be able to articulate that.
And it also makes total sense because I will let Nabeel speak at some point. It also makes total sense that, as a business owner in this industry in particular, I mean, there is also a benefit to you, to your brand, to empower your, employees to be able to do your job so you can focus your efforts on the bigger picture, the strategy, and pursuing the things that interest you as your career evolves. And I think in, the larger kind of corporate environments that tend to run a lot of the REITs and data centers, there's so many fiefdoms within those environments that it becomes difficult to have that same type of methodology where, people are trying to bring people up because they feel, like maybe their role is going to be, at risk by empowering others, when in reality, it's incumbent upon all of these companies to help, bring the next generation along.
Don't get me wrong. My role is at risk. You've seen some of the people that I have gone through my company who now are in phenomenal roles of their own, well earned in their own right.
No question, but that's a badge of honor, right?
Right,
and those people become your biggest clients.
Well, there is that opportunity. My door is open to them, but if they're smarter than me, then they don't need me.
Right.
Well, then, I mean, it's like you're giving back in a lot of ways. Right. So going back just for a bit, you found a mentor. At this point in time, did you know that was your passion? That was the journey where you're going to take?
So, yeah, I made the commitment to learn the industry. I got sold on the idea that I had the ability to walk into this warped new industry right at the front end of it, and it was mine to make or break. As a matter of fact, I came there in my family. They're very successful people in the music industry. So I grew up in a family, literally people serving rock stars, right? And understanding that rock star lifestyle and talking about that. And while I was an opera singer, right, there was always an opportunity for me to, maybe, right, go to the music producer and say, hey, can you help me out? But I didn't want that, right? I wanted to make it on my own. But I realized, and this is interesting, that to be a rock star, you could be a rock star in anything you do. You don't have to be a musician to be a rock star. You don't have to be anything except be the best at what you do. And then you are a rock star. And when I made that decision in my head, I didn't want to be an opera singer and that kind of diva. I made the decision to be really smart at something, and I wanted to be the best at what I wanted to do. Remarking here at PTC, it's great because you have the subsea folks, you have the data center folks, you have the networking folks,
the telecommunications, real estate, capital, VC,
all of those different points of our industry, right, intersect, but very few people understand the nuances of each of them. And I've worked in every single side of those and have relationships and a deep understanding in all three sides of that and why and how it comes together and the importance. That's the knowledge I purposely sought out to learn of how do I create an ecosystem of information that I could then turn that into something. I worked at a consulting firm as my first job. I knew I had to get experience in the industry to be a very good consultant. If you don't know the industry you're working on because you haven't worked in it, you can't really work the magic of it. So I purposely designed my career so that I could be a better consultant by understanding how the industry works.
What's rare is like people, look, hindsight is 20/20, right? But were you consciously making those decisions? I think people sometimes fail to see the forest for the trees or whatever that phrase is and have a 30,000 foot view of where their careers are and just try to get through the day.
I'm not going to lie. It was once I figured out I wanted to be in the industry, right? After working with David, who was my initial mentor, I sat with him and the same promise I'm giving to my team to sit with them. They're going to tell me what they want. I'm going to tell them how they can create that path in the industry. He did that for me.
Yeah. So, just out of curiosity, now it's probably a little bit different than it was before when we started our careers. Like we fell into the space, pure accident. You are not from the space. You go into space and you found a mentor earlier.
Nobody was from the space. The space didn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah. There's different stories. She found a mentor in the industry for an industry that we did not know how big it was going to get.
Of course. Yeah. There are all sorts of articles. In 99, the internet is dead. It's exactly. When the bubble burst, they were like, we told you it was just a gimmick.
Exactly. So if it was real estate or finance or any other vertical, that would have probably been easy to trust somebody and say, okay, this is the future. How did you commit to, or how did you get so inspired that you were willing to commit to making the
that's
transition?
My DNA too, right? Remember in college, I was on the BitNet. I did internet relay chat. I was one of 5 people in the computer room.
She was eating the dog food.
It was across from the laundry room, right? So, at midnight when I decided to do laundry, because I don't want to see anybody else's dirty underwear. I don't want them to see mine, right? I think
we found the title of the podcast.
Exactly.
Right? While I was doing laundry, seeing people laughing at a computer screen intrigued me. And I would go in and see what they were doing and what was going on. And I quickly learned about this BitNet system, right? And all of the universities being connected by this thing called the internet. And you had to type in this, massive code and, know who you were and how do you get that ID? And they taught me how to do that. And so then I got addicted, right? Because what do they call it, right? It's addicting, these devices. So
although I'm not sure to my kids, 10 and 6, for those listeners that don't already know I'm not sure that they would be addicted to the same kind of text-based thing that you saw. So it's all about context, right?
If that's all they had, right? And I was really curious because technology was intriguing to me. My father was an engineer, so he worked on the Patriot missile. Like, it was all just very interesting.
So there's all these connection points. And we talk about it all the time. It's exposure, experience, education, and opportunities. I mean, that's really the core of it. There was a connecting point that led you to believe in the platform and the industry, that this was going to be the state of the art in the future. Okay. So now, did you go into the corporate world after that?
That was 96, right? 96, you're
96 to 99. David and I, he built that business really well. I think at some point we had 12 different clients, and I ended up going to work for 2 of them directly. One was Ericsson. And this is a big thing that I encourage a lot of young people that I work with. Go to a big company at least once. When I went to Ericsson, I was young. I was given a great opportunity to help open up their wholesale office in New York, running marketing for them out of New York. But I had to go through their training program first. And so I spent 7 weeks in Richardson, Texas, just to go through, right, what all the policies, the procedures from sales training to, ISO certification and, naming of files and processes and procedures and how-tos and all that stuff. I loved it. It gave me the exposure to the organization structure that's required to operate business, right? How do you harness thousands, tens of thousands of people, right, to work in a manner that gets the company results? That was the baseline of it and gave me the true appreciation for company structure. And from there, every company that does not have that structure frustrated the heck out of me because you get spoiled, right?
Absolutely.
When you know how to work, right? It makes it easier. And so when I started my company, I started it with structure.
So you you stayed in the corporate, the corporate world for what, like 10 years?
No, so I jumped around a little bit. Ericsson, that was a great experience, but they wanted me to move to Richardson, and I'm a New Yorker.
Right.
Wasn't going to do that.
You'd be so exotic in Richardson, though. I can only imagine.
And then I went and worked for a small company selling co-location space in New York.
Don't knock it if you haven't tried it.
Across from Penn Station. And they were a reseller of AT&T's. And so they had, colo next to them, to the switch, right? So that it could be, nearby. I didn't realize how many people I knew, right? From David and my experience there, that I was able to harness that and sell space. They got sold 6 months later. And I got a phone call from someone I was in the midst of a deal with saying that the deal is off the table because he just accepted a job at Bandex. And I went, the Bandwidth Exchange out of London? You're going to London? He said, no, they just opened up an office in New York. I said, great. Who's the CEO? I want to go work for Bandex. So I called the CEO and said, I want to come work for you. And it was Jamie Martino at the time. And Jamie said, what are you going to do?
Cold calling talent that you learn.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like all the skills.
Hello, my name is Ilissa Miller. What are you selling? I'm selling Ilissa Miller.
What are you going to do for me? He said, I don't know. I'll do business development marketing.
Right. Right.
So I got hired. And at Bandex, I ended up running sales and marketing before the company sold to Arbanet in 2000. And so, I ended up getting jobs in. I went back to big company Telstra. I did work at Telstra, product management out of North America. I had responsibility for products, which phenomenal experience because product has to work with every department, has to commercialize, write it, develop it, bring it to market, operationalize it,
and you have to listen to clients and determine what products are relevant, right?
Yeah.
It's a totally different skill set.
By far one of my favorite jobs. Telstra was a great company to work for.
So, a lesson that I've learned so far about you is that you've created your own opportunities, carved your own way. The corporate culture is good to a certain degree, whereby you can have a good foundation and work in the bureaucracy and complexity of the equation, but it also gives you an opportunity to interact with people and learn from what's going to work or what's not going to work and be able to sell that. You started your own organization, working for a large enterprise and then taking the risk to be an entrepreneur. What was that transition like, and what drove you to do that?
I didn't know what I was going to do at that point. I was given an opportunity to partner with another PR person in their firm. She was getting ready to go get married. Was going to be on her honeymoon for a month and needed somebody to look after her business. So I was at Telex at the time, working with the team over there. Love those guys. And I still am honored to call many of them friends, clients, comrades in arms. But I'm not going to lie, right? Being in this space and being amongst the executive committee team members, it can be really tough. And at that point, I don't even know how old I was. I was barely 30, 31 maybe. And so being young, right, it was overwhelming and I needed to make a change. I knew I knew stuff, but I didn't know how much I didn't know, right? As we all do. So this opportunity came for me to look after the business and grow this small little PR firm and see what happens. And so she went and got married and came back, and lo and behold, we have 5 clients. Friends of mine, found out where I went and wanted to come work with us. So I helped build that business for 3.5, almost 4 years, until one day on a surprise phone call, I got promoted to be CEO of my own company. And I am forever grateful, because I don't know that I would have founded iMiller Public Relations if I did not have that former partner promote me to be the CEO of my own company.
What was that former partner's name?
Her name is Jamie.
I think we can say thank you, Jamie.
Yeah.
I thank Jamie every day. That
Sure.
is my gratitude, because the truth is I probably didn't believe enough in myself at that time, but by making that decision showed me that I should, right? That said, there's something here you might want to pay a little bit more closer attention to. So thank you.
You've done a phenomenal job, in everything that you've done. Everything you've touched has turned into be gold. And the coolest thing I like about you on a personal note is that you simplify it. You eradicate the hype that's created by a lot of other marketeers, which is false in a lot of ways. And it's great to see that foundationally you're strong enough. You've got the knowledge base. You've been there, you've done that, you've touched it. And, just you sharing the journey, you've touched pretty much every single element and component of this industry in some capacity, whether it be marketing or product development or sales. I didn't know that you could do telesales. I mean,
I'm not surprised. The one thing I've learned is that if you say I am PR, it means I am PR. I think I learned that. I might have just learned that.
Just the name in itself.
Yeah.
Just the name.
She is PR.
She is PR.
Did you change your name to Ilissa Miller? Or was it just, it's happened? It just happened.
It all just fell.
It all just fell in oh my God. It's amazing.
Well, there's a reason for everything.
Clearly.
So what's the latest and greatest? What do you think about the industry where we're at today? What are some of the challenges that we've got to address on a go-forward basis?
I want to answer that question in the context of marketing and in the context of what you just talked about, right? The hyperbole of it. So as we get older, right? And it's interesting because getting older, it's almost like, oh my God, I was so stupid then, right? How did I know that, right? A lot of what we do, right, is you have to be rooted in facts first, but we remember things through storytelling. And so being able to tell a story that's memorable, right, and full of facts and information, right, enough that somebody feels something from that, that's the magic of true marketing and PR. Where we get confused is the forceful manipulation of those feelings, right? It used to be called, and it still is to this day, putting lipstick on a pig for a specific reason. It's because that pig is wearing lipstick and it smells on the other side of that, right? And it may not be so good, but for some reason, where we as society, we've been so trained, right, through advertising and everything else, right, that's put out there. Think of it as propaganda. Our brains are so trained to look at that and look at that again, right? But as I mentioned, I'm getting older. And as getting older, I'm getting a little bit wiser. And I'm realizing that those who are also getting older and wiser see right through that. That's no longer something that you can pull the wool over people's eyes and have them believe. And so you have to be honest. You have to be direct. You have to be crystal clear. And nothing is perfect because these companies are run by humans.
Mm-hmm.
We're not yet having them run by machines, not yet. And so because of that, the expectation is that they will make mistakes. It's how they work through those mistakes, right, that matter. And showing the human side of it. And, full disclosure, me, my team, we're not perfect. We're humans. But addressing that out the gate and making sure that those who interact realize that there is accountability and ownership to that, super important. And those same ideas can translate into communication programs. And that's what I try to do.
So, you try to crystallize, you're in marketing, right? You try to crystallize all these things into like a word or two because the attention span of the human race has dwindled to almost nothing. And all I'm feeling as you talk and what I've always as you talk is authenticity. You can't teach authenticity. It's about allowing yourself to be vulnerable. It's about, not putting on, the lipstick on a pig thing is just this veneer of not dishonesty so much because I don't think it's necessarily malicious. It's just like, there is an element, look, life is a confidence game and sometimes you got to fake it till you make it. But at your core, you have to be able to explain what drives you, whether it's about selling yourself or selling a product. Like, what is the reason behind it? Don't lie to me about, why it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Just what value might I receive? Just like that question that the Bandex CEO asked you, like, what are you going to do for me?
Right.
Is really at the core of what all of us should be doing, not just in our careers. It's just, that authenticity should transcend, the professional world and just follow you where it's an excellent trait for a politician. It's just, incredibly rare and incredibly rare. But yeah, authenticity, you can't teach that.
Yeah. Do you step back in time ever and just imagine what would you do if you knew what you know today, or how would life be?
Ave Maria. I'm sorry.
Well, you're pretty good.
I was just inspired.
So it's funny. I was chatting with somebody earlier today on the East Coast, because I was up early, and what kept coming up in the conversation was this: I didn't even know that was an option. Like, everything is. If I look back, I would never have imagined I would be where I am. My imagination didn't even have any of this in its mind. I could not have well intended that because my mind is too feeble and small to think that way. And so I'm working on my own personal practice of surrendering, because I think if I predetermine where I need to go, that underestimates my capabilities. And I'm learning that, which is really a weird thing, and which is why I really like being able to pass on some of what I'm learning about myself in this world and this business to others through the professional development program. Because if I tried to go to that next level for myself, I have no idea where that would be. So let me sit where I'm at, relish in this, feel accomplished, help others achieve what they would like for themselves, and let the universe open up what it will show me.
That fits in with what we're trying to accomplish, be transparent, share a vision.
That's why we're here.
Absolutely. Yeah, Ilissa, we can't really thank you enough for everything that you have been doing for us.
But we can try. Thank you.
I wish we were recording this on video.
Yeah, one day we'll be able to afford the camera. But look, what you've done is incredible. I joke sometimes because it's the way I show love, that, it's the reason why people get frustrated with marketing speak, the cloud, the edge, because of, words you invented, the way you've articulated our industry comes from, such an impressive contextual place that I think you make the world a better place, Ilissa. So thank you.
My gosh. Well, that's quite a bit. Thank you. Wow. Thank you. Much gratitude.
This has been great. Nothing lasts forever. Markets will come back, currencies will rebound, businesses will go on, and we'll all move on. That could happen next week, next month, or next year. I'm confident that those who prepare rather than panic will come out of this stronger. Thank you for joining us. This has been brought to you by Nomad Futurist. Check us online at nomadfuturist.com.